Welcome back. For the second straight day, the U.S. and Iran traded overnight strikes, raising concerns about the possibility of a return to a full-scale military conflict. The Pentagon saying it struck approximately 90 Iranian military targets aimed at degrading Tehran's ability to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's foreign ministry denouncing the strikes and accusing the U.S. of hitting civilian infrastructure, which it called a grave war crime. Iran, meanwhile, responding with strikes of its own, launching a wave of attacks on U.S. allies in the region, including Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. Yesterday, while speaking to reporters on Air Force One on his way back to Washington, President Trump touted the U.S. strikes while also trying to downplay concerns about a return to a full-scale war.
We just hit them very hard, and I say we hit them 20-1. Every time they hit us, we're going to hit them 20. And we did it last night. We did a little something today, but it was really retribution for last night. They hit actually 3 boats, not 2. We hit back much harder.
Are we returning to a full-scale military conflict, sir?
I don't know. We'd win it very quickly. It's another way of doing it. We have many ways we can win, but we've already won militarily. They have very little. They have very little left, and they want to make a deal so badly. They called a little while ago. They want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they're worthy of making a deal. I don't know that they're going to honor the deal. That's the problem.
Joining me now is our team of reporters, NBC News White House senior policy reporter Shannon Pettypiece, who's at the White House, and with me on set is NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube. Shannon, let me start with you. So what are you hearing from the administration about where things stand with Iran, where they're going to go next?
Well, I mean, I will note, Kristen, we have not heard from the president directly today. We don't expect to see him at all today. He got home very late last night from that NATO summit you mentioned. But we did hear from the president, as you noted, on Air Force One last night, who essentially said this ceasefire is over and threatened additional strikes, threatened to resume that military blockade. He also said that the Iranians have been in contact with the White House or with him. Personally, it was unclear. He suggested once again that they want to make a deal very badly. But he said that he's not really sure whether they would follow through or hold up to any deal. He called them at one point sort of crazy and downplayed his ability to be able to negotiate with them as a negotiating partner. So right now, the president maintaining this position of, ending the ceasefire and not really clear on where we go from here.
Well, to that point, Shannon, how much concern is there inside the administration that this could be a slow walk back to a full-fledged war?
Yeah. And I mean, you heard the president in those remarks. He was asked very directly, are we going back into, essentially a full comment? And he says, I don't know. He then goes on to say, but if we do, we'll win it. We, have this group outmanned. But I mean, it's really going to be in the coming, days, weeks, maybe even months, whether or not we see again a full-fledged war like, a lot of Americans imagine in their mind, or a continuation that we have seen over several months of this back and forth, low level, sort of simmering conflict, I guess relatively low level to what we might see in another scenario, that will continue putting pressure on oil prices and putting pressure on the economy and, of course, putting pressure on the U.S. military.
And Shannon, just finally, we're learning that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke by phone today. What are you hearing about that? Yeah,
well, I mean, while we haven't heard from the president directly, we have gotten one insight into what he is doing today, and that is calling the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to, again, what the Israelis are saying, update them on this, which is notable. The president was gathered with European leaders, with the head of Turkey, but the Israelis were not in those rooms, were not in those meetings. So Israel putting out a statement saying that they were updated from the president on the latest, and also expressing concerns from Erdogan about statements that he and other officials made regarding Israel and Israel's security.
All right, Shannon Pettypiece from the White House, thank you so very much for your reporting, Shannon. We really appreciate it. Court, let me turn to you. Give us some insight into what the military targeted overnight, how robust these attacks were, what we can take from it.
So these were the biggest ones yet in this back and forth, what Shannon was just describing, these sort of, we've seen this happen multiple times now during the ceasefire, where Iran will fire on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, it will simmer for a day or two, and then the U.S. military will take strikes inside Iran. Generally, they go after the sorts of things that Iran was using to threaten the commercial shipping. What's really notable, though, about this week is it escalated so much faster than we've seen in previous times. And that is, in the first night, there were more than 80 targets. And then last night, very notably, not only were there more than 90 targets, but it's what they hit. In this case, not only did the military go after their radar sites and the places where Iran was launching missiles, they went after some of the military infrastructure and some of the civilian infrastructure where Iran, and specifically the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, is using that they are using to move military equipment and resupply. So that gets to this issue of why is it that every couple of weeks or days even the U.S. military finds all these additional targets along the coast with the Strait of Hormuz? And that is because Iran keeps moving more assets closer to the Strait of Hormuz. The military is now trying to cut off their ability to resupply to stop that going forward.
Well, Court, let me read something that Iran's lead negotiator posted on social media yesterday. He wrote, quote, "Let me put it plainly. If you strike, you'll get hit. The Strait of Hormuz will only open with Iranian arrangements, not American threats." This is after, of course, the president suggested he could potentially reinstate the U.S. blockade. What's the status of that? Is that still on the table?
The blockade is absolutely on the table. It's one of the options that CENTCOM has been presenting to President Trump. And notably, the U.S. has about 24 ships and aircraft, 200 aircraft there right in the region that could immediately restart that blockade if asked to do. They could also restart major combat operations if asked to, but again, it doesn't seem like the president is there yet. But at this point, Iran is hitting back. And that is why there's so much concern about this escalation ladder. If the U.S. really ratcheted it up with their strikes, is Iran going to continue to ratchet up? And how can this end?
Well, I know that one of the threads you've been tracking, I've been tracking as well, as what does the military footprint actually look like there? The president, of course, declared a ceasefire several weeks ago, now says that's over. But did the U.S. withdraw its military footprint at all, or is it the same footprint?
Not at all. And not only did they not withdraw, they actually reinforced. So they brought an additional carrier strike group. There's new carrier air wing. They have new aircraft and pilots and things. They also were able to resupply themselves. Iran wasn't the only one resupplying during the ceasefire. So that's how they have had the ability. They found new targets if in fact President Trump wanted them to take strikes like we've seen this week. I mean, Kristen, the reality is, munition stockpiles are low. Yes, some of these aircraft and these ships, they have been deployed for a long time. But if President Trump wants to restart the war, the military is still there and ready to do it. And they could do it quickly.
All right. Courtney Kube, as we continue to watch these escalations overnight. Court, thanks so much.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.